for being here for our meeting today on this hot and muggy day in June. So we will start with our roll call. Kate, you want to start, please?
Kate Rosenbarger, BUVA.
Katarina Kaw, BUVA.
Jane Cooper Smith, BUVA.
Heather Robinson, BUEA.
Brad Whistler, BUEA.
Michael Hover, BUEA.
Elisa Spinelli, BUEA.
D. Del Rosa, staff.
All right.
Sorry, D.
Oh, my mind lonesome.
You got this.
You got it. That's right. So welcome. All right. Roll call has been completed. We have our minutes from last month's meeting. Did anyone have any comments or corrections to the minutes as presented from last month?
I didn't see any issues.
Okay.
Called approved.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. And then we'll need to do a roll call in favor. Felisa, do you want to start on the minutes approval, please?
Elisa Spinelli, yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Katarina, yes.
Jane Cooper Smith, yes.
Heather Robinson, yes. Brad?
Brad Whistler, yes.
Michael Hover, yes.
Virginia Gathiri, yes.
All right. Welcome, Virginia, to the meeting. All right. So, Dee, you're up with director's report.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, we'll do the director's report and then launch into financials. First, after reviewing grant disbursements, we found that there was an overpayment to Secretly Group, unfortunately. This happened from a processing error on my part. We had, in their application, they had not factored in the matching. Within the meeting, we discussed the matching part and that we would only grant against a matching amount. And then when I went in, I accidentally made it for the full amount. So I have asked Secretly for the difference, and they, with a due date of 1 month from now. I'm very sorry for this mistake. I apologize, and I will do everything to rectify it as soon as possible. We have signed the contract with Stone Municipal Group, who has been evaluating our EZITs for the past few years. I'll start meetings again with them later this month, and something I forgot to add to this director's report, which I will amend later. The Office of Financial Analysis and Financial Management and Analysis, something to that effect. They're doing a review of all of the enterprise zones within the state. So what they're asking for from me is either a shapefile or every single address within the zone, which actually isn't that hard because GIS is wonderful here. And then an analysis of our EZIDs from 2019 to the present. Thankfully, the records that we've had with Stone have been really great, so that part is awesome. There's some just archival diving that I have to do for things that are here prior to my employment. So not super concerned about that. We've performed pretty well. Excited to speak with them and see what they have to say about that. So. Moving on to the financial report, we have no first quarter financial report, and I gave a little summary, and I'll just go ahead and read it for the record. We're experiencing difficulties obtaining statements from German American Bank, which is making it challenging to reconcile our first quarter statements. These ongoing issues with timely bank statement reconciliation are hindering our ability to make informed decisions regarding project funding. To address this, we're evaluating our collection, approval, payment, and reconciliation processes, and considering implementing view-only access to accounts for the executive director. This change would alleviate the administrative burden to our financial agents, who are the director of ESD and the deputy controller, by simplifying the process of obtaining documents required for quarterly reporting and monthly maintenance. Additionally, staff is exploring online banking tools that could enhance our control over transactions and improve visibility. The current banking tools we have lack the necessary flexibility for efficient management. So our three goals are to enhance access for designated financial agents and visibility, improve end-to-end process in 4 key areas: collection, approval, payment, and reconciliation, and increase the overall efficiency and promptness of the reporting. If you've been on this board for a while, you know that this is kind of a struggle that we've had on a pretty regular basis. Some of it is just the processes that we've had forever that need updating. Some of it is actually obtaining the information in a timely manner. So here's one example. Because our meeting is on the second week of the month, sometimes a bank statement isn't ready until the third week of the month. So that tends to be a hiccup, something that we can't always work on. So one of the things to solve that is that, and some of you were here for this, when we decided to have the financial report from Cheryl a month behind, so then we wouldn't have that lapse. But we're still having some issues getting like asking for paper statements and not getting them, or getting the paper statements on a regular basis, or having the appropriate access to get a statement, just because it's very kind of convoluted who has access and who does not. Like, as the executive director, I have zero access to any bank account, hence trying to get some view only things, so that because it's a matter of urgency for me, because I am your executive director, I can get to that sooner rather than later. So those are the things that we're working on at this point in time.
Dee, just to punch in there a little bit, I fully support you having view-only access to these accounts, and maybe was kind of unaware that you didn't at least have some of that. I get why you wouldn't be able to initiate any transactions. There's an internal control for all of these processes. But just to be able to view activity and print statements, to me, is an absolute no-brainer. And as executive director, I'm quite sorry that you haven't had that access already, because it would allow you just to see activity flowing through the account, what grants are being dispersed. I mean, there's all different kinds of things that would benefit your role by having that access. So just for the record, I would say I fully support you having view-only access to all of the accounts associated with BUEA.
Are other departments having the same issues with this bank? Is it this, specifically, or?
Can I chime in?
Sure.
So the BUEA is it's the only commission that's like this, that has its own funding. Everything else is housed within the city's controller's office and the city's accounts. But never mind. I just want to follow up with you afterwards, because I found that March statement has been posted since March, so I don't know why.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
Oh,
but we'll find it. But when I talked to German American, when we talked internally, someone else said, yes, we've been having trouble getting our statement. And then when I talked to German American, they said, no, we haven't really heard about this, but they're happy to facilitate that online access. And then, so I think we're on the verge of a breakthrough, which will feel really good.
Yeah, this is pretty much top priority for me at this point in time, because it really is hindering what I can do and be able to, when I talk to someone about getting a grant and they're like, well, do you have money for it? Well, in theory, yes, I do. But to not be able to solidly be like, oh, yes, we have this amount of money for the rest of the year for this particular, grant or whatever, would be incredibly helpful when I'm working with people. So yeah. Yeah, for sure. I am going to pull up our spreadsheet if I can, if I know what's happening here. I set this up and walked away for like a half an hour, so I've kind of forgotten where everything is. Let's see. There you are. Sorry, this mouse is problematic. Sorry, this mouse is giving me a really hard time. There we go. Yay! And I think that might be as large as I can make it at this point in time. Sorry about that. The equations from last time have been corrected, so they're actually subtracting and not adding. I'm so sorry for that. Sometimes I just like throw in a number and then think everythom's fine. So very quick rundown. Education budget, we have $77.5 thousand in commitments and disbursements with a $15,000 balance. In the entrepreneurship area, we have 48,000 in commitments and disbursements with 7,800 as a balance. Arts and culture, 25,000 in commitments and disbursements. That's the operations grant to Constellations, which is formerly, when it's been presented, it's kind of been housed within all of the operations grants that the BAC provides via the BUEA. This has been broken out separately this year. And we have an $185,000 balance in arts and culture. Zone improvement.
Okay, can I have just one question?
Sure.
On the arts incubator, any update on that for us?
Paige and I have had some really good discussions about it. It has still been part of the funding that supports the Ready Grant. Oh, that would be fantastic.
Okay, sorry,
yeah.
I've been working on this one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So we after we had significant staff turnover earlier this year, and prior to that they had been working on the accessibility piece, which was what this funding was intended to support, and the preliminary work to figure out what it would take to put a ramp on this building revealed that it was really not going to be super feasible, which is problematic because that's now a public facility. So this has to do with two things. And Brad, you know this building well, the OG Sprout Box building. So the ramp would have to go along the east side of the building, which would make it super long, the entrance over there, or there was some idea that it might connect over to the trail, which was also sort of weird, and then for it to connect alongside the building, which would make the most sense because that's where parking is, there would be required major parking lot improvements, which were not feasible for the property owner. The property owner, however, has made significant improvements based on feedback from the tenants. So they added lighting. They've, I can't remember off the cuff, sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, but they made some other changes that were requested. And then simultaneously, the Ready 2.0, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Ready program, which is IEDC's, the Indiana Economic Development Corp's main vehicle for supporting economic development across the state. We're in a Ready region for the uplands. And then the Lilly Foundation partnered with Ready to do a round of grant funding across the state that is specifically arts and culture focused. And so the city partnered with local, it's like a consortium led by IU for a kind of 4-point project that would really drive Bloomington's arts economy forward and make it support not just Bloomington but the region with a kind of umbrella goal of entrepreneurship for artists, right? Like helping artists be able to make a living at the work that they do. So with that as the umbrella, then the incubator was a really critical part of that, but the grant proposes, primarily because of this accessibility challenge, relocating the incubator to a different site inside the enterprise zone.
Oh, okay.
So this information will be released in early July, and so from the staff perspective, not my enterprise zone hat, we were planning to come talk to you all about that in July. So hopefully
okay.
we'll have some kind of news and some kind of recommendation for how to go forward, but would hopefully like to hold on to that funding in order to drive this arts facility need. Okay, is that?
Yeah,
all right.
no, that's fantastic. Awesome.
Thank you for the detail.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you for the
basically
update
all I
on
was going to
that.
say is like Paige and I talked about it. We're gonna try and keep the funding there. Details to come. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Jane, for that. Appreciate it. Glad to hear that that is still, moving forward and there's momentum.
Super important. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, Dee, go ahead.
Oh no, you're absolutely fine. Love to hear it. Zone improvement grants. We have 51,000 committed or dispersed, and 159,000 as a balance. The highlighted section is that's the rub, and this is another error on my part. I'm very sorry. When you see my spreadsheet of grants, you can click down and say ready to go, not ready to go. And somehow I clicked that's the rub as ready to go, got it halfway through the process, realized that there was nothing in our minutes that officially approved it. So that is why we are reviewing that grant today. So nothing has been dispersed. No, nothing has gone out, so we still can amend that, but I'm glad that we caught it before anything else happened. I'm very sorry about that. So,
Is that, what category are you talking about? You got it highlighted
I
in
have-
yellow.
yes.
It just, so there's no harm, no foul, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't think
no
you
harm,
need to
no
apologize.
No.
We can be excited that we're gonna hopefully.
Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
give
and
some,
maybe
you're gonna
pay
give
another
some money to some people
Yeah.
today.
That's great. Yeah, no apology needed.
And that's pretty much is it for financials at this juncture. Once again, when I can give you something more detailed and concrete, I will have it to you as soon as possible. Yeah, so let me stop sharing this.
This is really helpful, Dee, in light of just the challenges that we've had with getting the financials, having this spreadsheet and allowing the board to sort of track and like what's going out and what's committed and all of that. I think this is extremely helpful. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for putting this together and keeping it, updated and so forth.
It's incredibly helpful to me too because I mean, the wheels of government do turn slowly, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get things through the grinder than it should. So it's nice to know what I do have committed before I try and commit to anything else. Yeah. So those are my two reports thus far.
Right. Let's see what's next. Agenda.
Yeah,
To get
we
back to
can.
the top here. I think we have that grant.
Yeah,
too.
we can launch right into the grant language.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the packet, which was incredibly long, the reason it was long was because I put in all of the current grant guidelines and language, so everyone could have a very clear picture of what grant applicants are seeing when they are applying for a grant. There is a highlighted section within that, this is also part of a solo page in here that has the capital improvement grants eligibility. With these eligibility criteria, this is nothing new from what's already kind of been in the grants. It's just incredibly clear what we're going for. We haven't really had a whole lot of issues necessarily as far as people asking for things outside of this criteria that fit outside of this criteria. Also with applicants, as we saw with the Wonder Lab and the maintenance ask, that is something that I think that when we were creating the grant and we put it out there, it's assumed that you're not going to ask for perpetual maintenance. But now we came to a point where someone has asked for perpetual maintenance, so now we need to just clarify that that's not something that we're willing to cover. So that's what this eligibility criteria is. It's very clear in our minor improvement grant, but it was very much it very much felt inferred with the other capital improvement grants. So this is I feel that the board should approve this particular language because this is what I will be putting forward. This will be public facing on the site and for any packet material for any applicants or people interested in this. So there's that part. Does anyone have any questions about the eligibility criteria or feel that anything else should be added to the eligibility criteria?
Is only the highlighted section in the first part the change, or is it
That
changed
is-
throughout? We're just highlighting that is pretty much applicable on each grant.
Yeah, this is
Right.
The way it's structured, and this is an accessible packet, so it'll look different on the website.
Sure.
But the headline is basically capital improvement grants, and then like the eligibility criteria will be right underneath it before you go into any of the other grant guidelines. So like off the cuff, this is the eligibility criteria for all capital improvement grants. If that makes sense. Yeah? All right, and then moving forward, if there are no other questions, and of course we can come back to it if you would like.
Sorry, just.
Go for it.
I just want to clarify.
Sure.
because here it says clearly must be located within the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Zone. So we're saying for businesses, they must be in the zone. For nonprofits,
Okay.
they must be in the zone or serve residents of the zone. What's
So,
the,
thank you for catching
distinction?
that. There should be some clarification as we've like rediscussed our grants, so I will update that to the language that we had clarified in prior meetings.
okay.
Yes,
So-
thank
so
you.
applying that same standard to both
Same standards as
business
both.
and, okay.
Yes.
Good catch.
I have a question just for clarification, that I didn't see previously. The language of ineligible major renovations or structural overhauls, is that further explained somewhere, or is there some type of dollar amount? How would you know what that means?
No, that's actually another really good catch because that falls under the, wait a minute. Are you looking in the highlighted section?
Oh, no, maybe I'm not. I think I've gone too far.
There's a minor improvement grant that specifically says that the minor improvement
Okay.
grant is not for major renovations
Okay.
or construction overhauls.
Okay,
So that one is that's very much a micro grant.
okay, yeah,
You're fixing a window,
$1,000,
you're
yeah, right.
putting in a new lock or something to that
Okay,
effect.
so it can't go towards some type of major, if somebody needed to fill in a gap, they were doing something and it was maybe $10,000 and they,
No, this
had
one is,
9,000.
we want to keep this one specifically for that section, yeah.
okay.
Because there is a considerable amount of money for the other larger
Yeah.
programs, so,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Thank you.
And just for clarity on that, Dee, that is that sort of flexible up to $1,000 grants that you and team internally can approve. That doesn't have to come to the
Doesn't
board.
have
It's
to come to the board.
reported to the board.
Yes.
But that way it allows quick flexibility. So if someone has a broken window or something and they need that fixed quickly, you can have that flexibility
Yes.
to approve it and get the money out. Okay.
Is equipment, I have a question, sorry.
Sure.
In the capital, purchases of new equipment not related to repairs is not eligible. I guess I viewed capital as like, what if they need a major piece of equipment to do their business? I don't know, like a printing press, What, is that capital? Are we just looking at like building repairs?
We're looking at building repairs, that's more acquisition of personal property.
Okay.
So my interpretation when we talk about capital improvement is the physical space in which the building resides. I think that if we want to venture into something about personal property, like a major personal property investment, that's something that we should discuss. But I think that that's very much separate from the real property that we're talking about.
Great, okay, thank you.
The so capital improvement grants, so all of these are under this header, right? This header is applying to the minor improvement, the business and safety, everything. Okay. the language on in-kind staff labor at the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, so moving forward. Cool.
Oh, well, I guess I was under the ineligible expenses.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
So this will change barring our next conversation.
I was gonna say it's a little bit confusing.
Yes.
Okay.
So the first part is how the grants stand.
Got it.
On the public facing without the highlighted text.
Okay.
Our next step is to look at the in-kind labor match option that we had discussed at the last staff meeting. Tegan was wonderful to get this together before she left for Ireland. We'll see her in July maybe. So the purpose of the in-kind labor match is to reduce a certain amount of financial burden for the matching requirement that we have for our grants. And actually, I'm going to talk about the additional match waiver that is in the packet after the in-kind labor match. I think that both of these programs could be options. I think that it would be better to choose one. But we've discussed having like in-kind labor to assuage some of the burden of having the matching. And then last meeting, we also discussed getting rid of the match entirely. We inserted a match waiver option as well. And I think that it satisfies both the idea of larger businesses having some skin in the game and not just getting some free money, because some people just know how to write a grant. Some people know who to ask and how to ask and when to ask. And some people are gun shy about asking for grants because A, they don't have the money to match, B, they've never done it before, C, they don't know about the program or find out about it late. So with the match waiver, which I think is a great option, it's fewer than 50 full-time and part-time employees and less than $1 million in annual gross revenue. So we're really targeting smaller businesses. It's very succinct as to who can ask to not have to match. It's a pretty simple process. And I think that this satisfies a lot of the conversations that board members have had time and again of why are we doing a match? Do we do a match? When is it the best time? And the match waiver is really just that simple. How many employees? Are you less than $1 million? And are you within the zone? This one is particularly, are you physically located within the zone? The in-kind match, I think, is also a very good option. However, it can get more complicated for a small business who may not have the staff ability to do that. Some small businesses are really only a couple people. In-kind is kind of a vague term. It can be hard to kind of put those things on there. However, the worksheet that's put together is a simple worksheet that is, I personally think does actually satisfy all of the requirements of what you would want to see in an in-kind labor match when someone is applying for the grant. So I would love to hear your opinions on either of these as you've read through them. Happy to take any questions on any of them.
I'm a fan of the worksheet. I think it is succinct and gets straight to the point. Easy to fill out. No one's gonna have trouble with putting that together and calculating what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So are we also saying that someone could use the in-kind labor match and, I guess it wouldn't matter then if they use the waiver because it's one or, now that I'm thinking all of that through, it would be
Right.
one or the other.
Yeah.
or neither. I mean, they may not, but it could be, it's one or the other then when we're talking about the labor match, or they might waive, just submit a waiver to completely waive the match.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, the umbrella goal of the BUEA is to foster economic vitality within the enterprise zone. We've unpacked that a little more to understand that grants could go to zone impacting organizations. It doesn't just have to be physically located in the zone, it can be zone impacting. So I guess I'm curious why we would require the waiver to have a physical location within the zone. What's the benefit to that? How does that bounce?
None, but I wanted to make sure that there were some pretty clear-cut restrictions on the match waiver, and this can be changed. I mean, there is nothing set in stone here. If that is something that the board wants to get rid of, I'm happy to get rid of it.
I mean, in my personal opinion is just that this is an add-on. The grant will already go through all the criteria, eligibility criteria, through the evaluation process. And so this is just for the match waiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that really, for me, it doesn't belong there. It's just one more filter. So that was one question. And then fewer than 50 full-time, less than $1 million in annual gross revenue. I think that the intent is for it to be truly a small business. So that makes sense. And I just wonder if are those correct for a match waiver?
Like you think it's too hard?
Who are we trying to support? If we're trying to support really vulnerable businesses for the match waiver, then is this the right way to identify them?
Isn't that the Small Business Administration's definition for?
I don't think
It's 500,000.
5 million is
5 million. That's
is
what
the
it is.
minimum,
Okay.
but 50 employees.
Yes,
We kept
I
it
know
at
that
50
was 50.
employees
Yeah.
because of restaurants who
Of
may have a
course.
large roster of
Yeah,
employees.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's not FTE. That's
It's
just
not full time.
employee
It's
anything.
Employees
Okay.
flat, 50 employees.
Okay.
Yeah, so the SBA definition, just non-manufacturing businesses under 7.5 million, so they must have increased
7.5.
that. And then
Wow,
what I
they
thought
did
it was
increase it.
500 employees. So
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
really something different altogether.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And it
Significantly.
makes sense to me that the BUA has a different standard.
Okay.
Yeah, I love this idea. I guess I don't know what some of the small business is that an average growth. So I don't know. Some of the bars that have 40 employees, I'm sure they're killing it. With Kilroy's. I don't know how
Pizza
much
shops.
they're bringing in with their, but so I kind of have that question too. I fully support this waiver, but just want to make sure we're dialed in right. I think the 50 employees sounds solid because you definitely want to be able to capture some restaurants that might have 30 or 40 fluctuating part-time employees or things like that. You don't want to exclude because of that number, but I'm wondering about the gross receipts, and that's just me simply not knowing. I mean, Brad, you're a business owner. Do you have some thoughts on that? And of course, Virginia as well. And Felicia's on it. Business owners have thoughts.
I'm fine with these definitions. I mean, I think $1 million in gross revenue would be a lot for a small, particularly for any kind of for a retail business. That would be that would be a lot.
Okay.
I don't think we. But certainly Kilroy's is doing more than.
Yeah.
So-
I feel like they're good.
I think it's-
They're probably good.
I think that's a pretty good number.
I think that's a good, can we do
I mean, it's-
some other kind of examples, what about the Owlery, Because I don't know gross revenue at all either. Like, would they have fallen into this category?
I think
Yeah.
$1 million. No, I think $1 million is not much for a restaurant. Like food prices are really high, and anyone who's turning a fair amount of tables, like, I don't want to share information I'm not empowered to share, but like, I think
Coffee shops.
pre-pandemic, certain coffee shops may have been in that neighborhood. So I think when you add food
Yeah,
to it,
it's
the
not
dollar amount
inconceivable.
goes really high. And I guess that's why I want to get at that question of like, who are we trying to help? Because with these filters, there's not a demonstration of need, but it's a demonstration of size, and that's fine if that's what the board wants to do. Like, we want to offer the waiver to small operations, and this is how we're going to define small operations. I always am thinking more about like, who are the struggling operations? How can we define that? Like, do they declare a loss on their income, on their K1s or whatever? Is that a way?
I think I
I mean,
would.
you could use an earnings test, a profit test instead of a gross revenue test, if you wanted to.
I would probably struggle with, if there were a battle between need and size, I would probably have an objection to need, especially if they would extend the size, because you could easily, have 2 million and claim a loss of 1.5. That would be a little crazy, but you could, but it's conceptual, right? So, and if it were okay, if you're in the zone and the loss doesn't matter, and you could, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think both would have to be true to make it make sense. I don't think it would be reasonable to also allow just claiming a loss, because you could potentially have 200 employees, and who didn't claim a loss, right? Who hasn't claimed a loss, depending on how long you've been established and if you were in COVID and so I would argue that both would have to be true, or it would just have to be at the size, irrespective of need. But that's just my.
And excuse me, can I say something, please?
Yeah, of course.
And this is what I meant, and maybe my passion overweighs sometimes what I'm trying to reach. And I didn't mean to disregard Brad or Regina being business owners when I spoke last month. I just meant the smaller businesses in the zone, because it's in this time right now, it's different for smaller businesses. And just like Virginia said, even as a larger business, you could have the need. And I don't want our level of criteria to outweigh the need of people in the zone, no matter what size you are or how many employees you have. Because in this time right now, there's need to help businesses. And that's how we stand aside from banks. So I think that is a beautiful compromise, Steve, what you guys are doing by putting a waiver out. But then again, on another hand, it still sets people in need aside, because you're biased on how big or how large the business was before these trying times. And that can happen to any size business, especially in the zone.
Yeah, I do fully agree with your point. I fully understand your point. I would say though, when it comes to, I think that part of the idea of keeping it for smaller businesses with smaller revenues is money attracts money. And so larger companies, larger businesses tend to have an easier avenue to obtain more funding. They can usually get more traditional funding and have those different tools to use. Whereas when smaller businesses go into and have an issue, it's harder for them to get traditional lenders and to get traditional funding, which is why I think that we were focusing on smaller revenues and smaller numbers. But I fully understand what you're saying, for sure.
Yeah. And because our budget is limited for these particular categories, I mean, there is some consideration around that, to your point, Dee, that we've essentially sort of, the waiver exists because we don't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in budgets for these grants. So that the waiver really tries to reach some of the most vulnerable small businesses, whereas to your point, larger business can have greater access to other funding resources. So, I mean, I think that also might be a point of decision or discussion with this as well, that we could still base it around some need, but with some of this other criteria, because we've said as an organization we want to, because we have just a finite amount of money in our budget, that we want to make sure that those that are receiving waivers are some of our vulnerable small, what might be some of the micro businesses. Just kind of throwing that out there for thought and discussion.
I'd like to say, so this waiver is for funding for capital improvement, buildings, safety and security, and accessibility. It's not for operations. It's not for staff, like paying staff to do business as usual. Right. I'm thinking about Lotus, like we would fit under 50 employees, under $1 million, but I wouldn't have any money for capital improvement at all in my budget. Mm-hmm. Like, if I need to do a capital improvement, safety and security, accessibility, I have to get outside money because that's not part of, like, we operate under this money, and there's nothing extra, And the building is, I mean, for us specifically, it's a historic building, right? It's like something that needs to be maintained, but like the waiver, it's like why have the barrier of the in-kind when most businesses are not going to have the money for these kinds of expenses anyways, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how many businesses in the zone have money for building improvements, like unless they own the building, but how many own the buildings,
Right.
Well, I have a personal example of that actually, because depending on, now that the economy is a little different, so if you're leasing, a lot of places will do certain leasehold improvements, whereas 10 years ago, it was all on the person renting, right? Mm-hmm. So in commercial, a lot of times they're doing it because they want you in the space, and it's just harder. It's more of a buyer's market, right? So, but you find the money. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you have to improve the space to fit it to what you need, you figure out how to get the money. So, I mean, I would agree that sometimes
like applying for a grant, right? Or asking for investors or something like that.
So you're saying that it's a barrier.
It's not outside, it's not outside of your regular operations. We're not paying for anyone's salaries. We're asking, like, people are coming to us to ask for something that's outside of their budget anyways.
Right.
So, like,
I got it.
Whatever size you are, whatever kind of business you are, if you are in the zone, shouldn't you just have access to capital improvement? Because that is what is actually making the zone better, is like having a better looking, better structured community, in this area.
I think there's two sort of competing principles here, right? One is we want to make it as easy as possible for struggling organizations and businesses to access capital. On the other hand, we want to make this money go as far as we can make it go and support as many organizations as we can. So we don't want businesses that are thriving who don't really need this money to come in and scoop it all up. So we don't have money to support the ones that are in the most need. So I think what we're trying to do here is create some test for the need that we can apply, so that So we're making sure the money goes, to the people who really need it.
Can I
So,
offer, when you're done?
Well, I was just gonna say, look, it references here, applicants seeking the match waiver must complete the match waiver request form. We don't have an actual,
We don't have
we don't have that form
we
yet.
don't have a full
I would
form
just suggest that on that form, there's some, portion where they describe the need or the hardship that should justify the waiver of the match. And we, it doesn't have to be a strict, quantifiable guideline, but I think we can judge relative to the other applications that we're seeing at the time, where the need falls.
That's really helpful. I was just pulling up the bylaws just to orient us, and so briefly, without the big preamble, the corporation may coordinate zone development activities, serve as a catalyst for zone development, promote zone to outside groups and individuals, establish a formal line of communication with residents and businesses in the zone, act as a liaison, blah, 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 initiate and coordinate any community development activities that aid in the employment of zone residents, improve the physical environment, or encourage the turnover or retention of capital in the zone. So I don't have an argument. I'm just offering that as centering.
Yeah, I think that's, all the comments here are really good. And I think that your point's good, Brad, in that, being able to just simply make the case. Like, if Lotus came, to your point, you don't have money for capital, but you have found that suddenly there's a $7,500, I think in the waiver application, then make the point of the need. It's not in the a regular budget for the organization, and
I guess I don't know
Yeah.
another example, like someone who'd be outside of that $1 million in under 15 place, like someone who operates a business in the zone who's above that, but would still not necessarily have funding for these specific kinds of things, and the only things that I can think of are like the bus curb Chumley or something, or but again, these are historic buildings, so maybe it's a little different, or
and they could go through the historic facade potentially if it's like facade.
I'm just we're kind of nitpicking a little about like who should be getting this money, but it feels like the zone, like if you're in this zone, you have a need, don't you? Like, isn't like that the whole point of the zone?
The whole point is the distrust or
Right.
low consensus.
Yeah. So like, whether you make over $1 million or not, you might still have a need. And let's just say you are trying to really invigorate the building that you're in. That I don't know. I'm just trying to understand a little more, like, why do we need to be so specific and limiting of those that apply when this whole, like, everybody, like, we need to be supporting businesses so they can actually do stuff, right? And it feels like we're actually hindering.
And these are only for the waiver. All of the other businesses can apply. They just have to bring the match.
They have to bring a match, right?
Yeah.
So so if you have over $1 million, does that necessarily mean that you have money outside of your regular business to be putting into building improvements or safety and security and accessibility?
I appreciate what you're pushing on, and
That's good discussion.
I might summarize kind of what I see as the types of things we're talking about. So on one hand, we have this proposal for a match waiver that is focused on business size. We had one discussion that I think we backed away from about need, because I think we think there's a need, and then I don't know what the third category is, kind of questioning, do we need a match at all? Is that kind of where you're pointing to, or do we need a criteria for a waiver? But either way, the third option I think is more expansive, less of a barrier. Is that how you guys are understanding where we are?
Yeah, I would say that the options that are on the table right now are match waiver, no match at all. those are the two clear ones that I am getting
Okay.
from the board in general.
Right.
I personally favor no match at all. From an administrative point of view, it's very helpful. I think it maximizes the amount of people who are willing to apply for something, and that is a major. I think it's a major barrier when they see that they have to match up to 50% of their ask, because when people are asking for money, it's usually because they don't have any. So I am partial to that. I have given options, and it is up to you to decide.
I sorry, I just want to add one more thing. Like, so we're talking about building safety and accessibility in the zone, but then we're also talking about businesses applying for these grants who are serving the zone and outside of it. Like, the fact that they are physical, it's funding for physical improvement. Does it make sense to apply that, like, that same accessibility to people who are outside the zone? Is that
So like the benefit of having the address requirement is that these investments are going to the physical improvement of the zone, which is cited in the bylaws. And so therefore you would want that barrier because you're ensuring that the dollars
are
serve
going
the
to the
zone.
improvement of the zone itself?
I'm fine with that. Like, I do think that the bar for businesses that are physically outside the zone should be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying we should eliminate it completely,
There's
but
that rubric
I'm totally fine with saying, if you're outside the zone, you gotta pay the match. Like, we're reserving, match-free grants for businesses and organizations inside the zone. I don't have any objection to that.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Kate. I do want to note our time, and we have not reviewed the one grant request we have for today. I think this is an awesome discussion, and I wonder if we could, Dee, if you could maybe refine this a little bit on base, and if we could pick this up, Kate. I didn't want to take your comments there off the table, but I wonder if everyone is good with that, so we can actually do the business of approving one of our grants today.
And thank you for the discussion. I will come back with some more fine-tuned things for this. Let's move on.
I want to add too, if that's okay, that this is cutting into another meeting. Like, I can do a little off, but like I do have 2 on clocks actually. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's the rub. It is located in the grant building. They are doing physical improvements. This is a business building improvement grant. There is painting, patching, and priming of walls and treatment in the hallways. This is a CFC building. CFC is a fantastic support of small businesses. They are incredible landlords. They are putting up part of the match, as per usual with most of their projects. They're also helping with tenant improvements. This is pretty straightforward, I feel. So, do you have questions? If there's anything specific, sorry, because the time is limited.
I don't really, I just can't, I think I need to log into Civiform to view.
Oh, to see the,
Yeah.
Hold on.
No, I can't see a picture.
But
Yeah.
if
I
It's just
got
walls,
pictures.
walls, I guess.
I got photos.
I didn't.
Yeah, I think you have to make them really small if you're doing them on your,
Yeah.
you can reduce.
This sounds
Are
good to
you logged
me.
into Civiform? I wonder why you can do it.
I'm not. I pulled it down and saved it to my desktop. So
There we go.
I think too, they're in a really difficult location,
okay.
that huge one-way street and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's kinda
so,
hard to get foot traffic.
Is anything, so I looked through the pictures from a contractor perspective, it looks like there's maybe some humidity issues. Do we know if that's being addressed?
that is being addressed by CFC.
Great.
okay.
So there are other improvements that CFC is doing to this so that these,
Don't come back to the.
yeah, so it doesn't
Right.
come back in a year, so they're
Right.
not painting for painting's sake.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
but yeah, some moisture, some cracking.
Okay. Any questions, concerns about this one? Okay, do we feel good about approving this grant? If
I'll move that we approve this grant.
Second.
All Okay, we'll need a roll call for it. I think it's
Yep,
it's
Felicia's still up there.
Okay.
Sorry, Felicia. I
Yeah.
forgot to share the pictures with
Yeah,
you.
if you want to start the roll call for approval of the,
You're on mute.
that's
It's
the,
fine, I looked over them.
Okay.
okay. So that's a yes from you.
Yes,
Okay.
Felice Spinelli.
Michael Hover, yes.
Brad Whistler, yes.
Virginia Gathiri, yes.
Heather Robinson, yes.
Jane Cooper Smith, yes.
Katerina Call, yes.
Kate Rosenberger, yes.
All right, Kate, so sorry to cut you off. Please
Oh.
finish with your comments. We have like
It's okay.
2 or 3 minutes
Ugh,
here.
I don't remember. I think I had two
Oh.
things I don't remember. I think one was because we are becoming more flexible with zones that impact, or businesses and nonprofits that impact the zone, that are outside of the zone. I do want to be careful with like how much we give to one organization for like sometimes the match might be useful in order to leverage dollars that we can then use to help other organizations, I guess. Like, I think if organizations or businesses have dollars to leverage, I am interested in keeping that part still. And if they aren't, I think it makes sense to not have that match. I don't know. It's just something I think about, I guess. But I definitely get to like improving anything in the zone is useful. I mean, I think about some like facade grants that whether or not we did the grant, they would be doing the facade renovation, right? So that was like nice to have, but didn't need to have, which is okay because definitely facade grants make the zone look much better. But I think about that sometimes too, I guess.
Well, this grant in particular, like, they're leveraging CFC money, which obviously CFC is like, if they're the ones who are owning the properties, the match, well, it extends our ability to, like, we don't have to give as much. It extends our ability to give more money to other people. But then also, like, maybe CFC is more willing to do these projects for the leaseholders because they're getting a little bit coming to them.
That makes sense too.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I'll dissect this for all
Good discussion, and we'll continue that next month. And Dee, I think you were going to check July is a tough one.
Yes,
right.
so July, because we missed meetings earlier in the year, I would like to keep the July meeting probably not the second week of July, as it's right after the holiday. I know that usually we take this month off, or July off. I will send out a doodle poll to see if either of the remaining Wednesdays are good around the same time. But there's just, obviously we didn't get through all of the business today.
Yeah.
I'd like to get through that business on Wednesday, in July, so.
I'll be remote in July.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Any of the Wednesdays, okay.
Yeah.
Great, meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you all so much for your time.
Good discussion.